Yo guys, it's Taras, and today I'm gonna record the second episode of KaldunCast. This is a topic near and dear to my heart: peace for Ukraine and Russia. In Russian, "Мир для Украины и России," and in Ukrainian, which I don't know it very well at all, "Свет для Украины и России." So if you don't know, my family came here from the Soviet Union, so I'm more ethnically Ukrainian, but I did get born on the Russian side. And my Russian's kind of bad and my Ukrainian's worse. But I have some basic familiarity with the subject that I'm going to be talking about today. I can't necessarily comment on the details of any particular news story or tell you what media outlet you should trust on this subject, but I want to do something today to move things towards peace because this is a topic that I think a lot about. It really tugs on my heartstrings. So, what is real peace? What am I really advocating here? It's more than not just attacking people. We need freedom of speech, of trade, association, and movements of people. We need understanding and empathy towards other points of view, even ones that seem repugnant to me. Me and you. And for me, I'm pretty upset about communism. Like I said, our family left the Soviet Union in quite a hurry, so that's something, that ideology really grinds my gears. But we do need empathy and understanding, even across that political divide. Demilitarization, drawdown of nuclear weapons, letting people cross the border. And then also ceasing paramilitary activities, things like cyber attacks, sanctions, espionage, and information warfare, including potentially like the troll farms that you hear about, astroturfing, and disinformation via the media. It's worth taking a minute to think about what hangs in the balance here. It's not only the lives of the soldiers in these two countries that are in conflict, it's all the civilian deaths. It's a potential for escalation to total war, to nuclear war, and a level of destruction both in these countries, and potentially it could spill over to the rest of Europe. It could spill over to America. And if nuclear weapons are going off, not only could human life be ended at a colossal scale, it would be an environmental catastrophe, the likes of which we have never seen. This is an issue that really keeps me up at night, and some days I think, do I need to literally go over there and put myself in a war zone? And I think the answer is no. I think that if I did that, I'd probably be risking myself and others getting blown up because I just don't know what I'm doing. But I've got huge sympathy for Ukraine and for Eastern Europe as a whole. A year ago, I was in a mindset of wanting to have believed that the Russian nation state has changed for the better and it would not be doing something like this. But we have had a backdrop of this conflict going back to certainly at least 2014 with the Euromaidan uprising in Ukraine. And then sort of the counter reaction within Russia was to send the alleged little green men into Ukraine, into Crimea, to seize that region, and then also trying to sponsor these anti-government movements in eastern Ukraine in the Donbass region. trying to split that off. And now in 2022, they've officially invaded and tried to take that area over as Nove Rossiya, New Russia, which I'm very much against invading places and killing people and taking land, if that needs to be said. I've got a libertarian, anarchist sort of peace and freedom ideology, and I am against doing that sort of thing. Now, are other nation states really better than Russia? It's one of those things where I look at things like the Bucha massacre and I'm horrified of what I see. But you also have to keep in mind that the United States and NATO have been engaging in drone warfare for decades as part of this global war on terror. And a lot of other countries feel the same way about the US and NATO that the Ukrainians and other Eastern European nationalities feel about the USA. Right now, again, with some of the stuff that's been coming out of the media, it makes my blood boil. What the Ukraine invasion has unleashed upon people. But it's important to keep things in perspective. And then, of course, we've got the media promoting a political agenda. And, I'm Ukrainian, but really I had never thought about blue and yellow flags and Zelensky and Slava Ukraini a year ago. If anything, like you're on social media and pretty much all that everyone's saying on Ukraine is that we're far right and that we're anti-vaxxers or whatever. And then suddenly this year we blow up and we're in the news and we've got blue and yellow flags to our face. And it's all right to be shouting glory to Ukraine in the streets, where if I was doing the same thing with a Russian or American flag in the streets, people would rightly think I was pretty weird. But we're in new times here, and I'm just really having trouble sort of reconciling sort of my libertarian non-interventionist beliefs, being pro-peace, and also my sympathy for Ukraine and Ukrainians. So yeah, my family is kind of split between pro-Ukraine and more neutral perspectives, which are mostly like, keep your head down, we're going to get through this, don't talk about it. But how can I not talk about it when I feel so strongly, when I desire peace, right? So it's really hard. So I was at PorkFest in June, and I made myself a protest sign to bring to the Cathy Young and Scott Horton debate on sending weapons to Ukraine. Basically, when I got to the venue, the wind blew away. So I was a pro-Ukraine peace activist, and then I became just a regular peace activist. But it says Svoboda, Mir I Bog, and that means liberty or freedom, peace and God. And then I've got a peace symbol over here. I've got an anarchy symbol here. And then the three main religions of Eastern Europe, of course, are Eastern Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And I wanted to make a point that these are the majority religions. Both Ukraine and Russia are majority Christian. Ukraine is more super majority Christian. It's like 80% Eastern Orthodox, 10% Catholic, whereas Russia's more like 70% Christian. But kind of making the point that they're God-fearing people over there. So Scott Horton has been really great on analyzing the wars in the Middle East, and he's my go-to source for things about like what's going on with the war in Yemen. And he's advocating non-interventionism here, not sending the weapons and the funding to the Ukrainian government. And that's very hard for me because I feel so strongly about it. But the fact is that this money, this funding, these weapons, they're always sent with strings attached, and they're being funded by the American taxpayer. So that's a difficulty. Is it ethical for the Biden administration to be pillaging the taxpayers and using that money to fight a proxy war to accomplish a geopolitical objective of weakening Russia as this enemy state? And that's a very difficult question to answer. I'm definitely sympathetic to Scott's claim, but I also heard Cathy Young, who was arguing for the affirmative of sending the weapons. I heard her on Coleman Hughes' podcast, and she's got more of like the mainstream media type of perspective, and she's got also more experience even than I do growing up in the Soviet Union and in Russia. And then I also heard Mike Moynihan on the Fifth Column podcast, and he actually went to Ukraine, and he was in Lvov, which is one of my family's like hometowns, and he was doing some really courageous reporting there. So I recommend checking out all of these events. Like, check out what Scott Horton has to say, what Cathy Young and Mike Moynihan have to say on the subject, and I'll link those in the show notes. So let's do a quick breakdown of some of the ideologies that are involved in this conflict. And NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that was started to prevent the Soviet Union from taking over Western Europe. But since the Soviet Union disbanded, it's been expanding eastwards. The newest additions to it were Finland and Sweden just this year. And they've been integrating with the Ukrainian army, and they've got CIA and American military even providing support to the Ukrainian army to fight this proxy war. And there were assurances, not really written down, to Russia that NATO would not be expanding eastwards. But it has been, and they view it as a national security threat within Russia, rightly or wrongly. Then we've also got ethnic conflict between Ukrainians and Russians in the Donbass region, which is that eastern region of Ukraine, which was recently seized by Russia. Then you've got the expansionist ideologies, both far right and far left is, a way of describing them. Sort of neo-Soviet and hard right within Russia that are anti-liberal and want to expand, that are in reaction to the hard times of the 1990s, when there was this transition to neoliberalism, and it was kind of a train wreck. Living standards really fell throughout the 90s within Russia, and I think that hardened people's hearts towards democracy and towards liberalism. Then we've got a schism in the Orthodox Church, in Eastern Orthodox religion, around Ukrainian independence. And in religious terms, this is called autocephaly, where the Greek church, which is considered the first among equals of the churches, declared that Ukraine could be religiously independent of Russia, where Russia does not want them to be independent and autocephalous. So right now, the two wings, the Russian and the broader Eastern European community, are in schism with each other. They're not in communion. And that's going to be an important piece of the puzzle, is getting Russia and the broader Eastern European community back on the same page. Then we've got irresponsible energy policies in the Eurozone. There's rumors that Russia's going to be shutting off the gas to Western Europe this winter in response for the sanctions that were levied against Russia. And that's going to be potentially a train wreck of really high fuel prices and therefore really high cost of living increases for working class people in Europe, places like Scotland, where it gets cold and they rely on natural gas for heating, and they haven't really had the buildup in energy infrastructure to offset their dependence on Russian gas. And then finally, we've got opportunism by the NGOs and the media, who are using this crisis to profiteer off of our attention and donations. So is military victory the only way we are going to get to peace? What else can we advocate for that can move things in a peaceful direction? And I'd say the first thing is opening up immigration to Russian and Ukrainian folks who are peaceful, and there are plenty on both sides who just want to have a better life. And I think that we need to be sympathetic to those folks and give them a chance to immigrate and to find a better job and living situation here in the West while this conflict rages on. And then supporting local churches and donating to the Red Cross. I've done that myself, both with some local Eastern Orthodox churches and the International Red Cross, who is helping people with medical attention in Ukraine and in other spots. So that's always a good way to help people and feel good. And can we advocate for breaking up NATO into smaller chunks? I think that's a sensible call, but that does mean that Russia's going to have greater leverage over the smaller, reduced Eastern European sort of alliance for peace that could emerge out of that. And I think that's something that has to happen, that we have to make concessions on all sides. But obviously that hurts. And a lot of people want to take a hardline stance against Russia. And how do you reconcile that? Then nuclear disarmament. I think we've got to draw down the number of nuclear weapons that are in existence throughout the world. And Russia, China, I guess India, Israel, the US, all the major powers have to agree to do that, because it's just too dangerous to have these types of weapons that can blow up cities, countries, the entire world out there without a lot of supervision of how they could be launched. And then, of course, we've got to eventually negotiate a good peace treaty that people can feel good about and start moving in a peace and freedom direction. Lastly, I'm going to shout out my sponsors real quick. This has been a emotionally heavy episode for me, but we're going to do it and make it happen. So do you ever wonder what true liberation feels like? You can gain the high-value skills for lifelong success in just a 12-week course, Give yourself what you need to live at a higher level at getautonomy.info, or check out my website for an affiliate link. And then you can also learn the dirty secrets of finance that the globalists don't want you to know at wealthbattle.com. Again, check out the description and my website for my affiliate link. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe, and check out our sponsors. Check out the website. Peace.